The cabin isn't hidden in the woods, it's hidden in the earth, and that changes everything. Instead of building up into the sky, one lone builder starts by cutting down into the ground, chasing an idea most people would never attempt. A two-room log cabin, buried low, quiet, and nearly invisible from above. The kind of shelter that feels half like architecture, half like a secret. Earth-sheltered homes have a real advantage. The ground acts like a thermal buffer, holding temperatures steadier through the seasons. They can be quieter, too, because the earth helps block sound. But the trade-off is clear from the beginning. Underground comfort is earned with planning, and the biggest enemy is water. Before the first log is placed, the real work begins with the soil. Excavation is slow, careful, and unforgiving. OSHA treats trenching and digging as some of the most dangerous work in construction because a collapse can happen faster than anyone can react. A single cubic yard of soil can weigh more than 2 tons. That's the kind of pressure sitting quietly around every wall of this future cabin. So the builder moves deliberately. He shapes the cut, he clears space, he keeps checking the walls of the excavation because underground, nothing is casual. One mistake in the earth can become a disaster in seconds. This is where the dream either becomes a structure or disappears back into the dirt. As the hole deepens, the cabin's footprint starts to appear. Not a big footprint, but a smart one. 2 rooms, built for real use. One space can serve as a sleeping area. The other can hold gear, tools, and the daily work of off-grid living. That simple split makes the whole project feel less like a shelter and more like a home. But underground construction is not romantic in the moment. It is muddy, heavy, repetitive. And every layer removed from the earth creates new problems to solve. Because once the dirt is gone, the structure has to carry the world that used to be above it. The next challenge is support. Below-grade walls do not get an easy life. Earth pressure rises with depth, which means the lower sections are doing the hardest work. This is why underground builds cannot rely on hope. They need logic. They need structure. They need materials placed with purpose. The builder starts establishing the framework that will hold the cabin in place. Drainage matters here. So does separation from wet soil. In earth-sheltered construction, water is not a side issue. It is the issue. The system has to work as a system. Drainage, waterproofing, and careful backfill all working together. If one part fails, the whole cabin pays for it. That's why the protective layers matter so much. Wood should not live directly against damp earth. Ground contact can accelerate decay, which is why approved treated wood is used where necessary and why the cabin's structure is kept as dry as possible. Underground, the goal is not just to build something strong, the goal is to keep it alive. Now the log work begins. This is the moment the project starts to feel like a cabin instead of a pit. Logs are brought in, measured, and placed one by one. Each piece has to fit with the last. No shortcuts. No pretending rough work will somehow become precise later. It won't, and logs are not static. They move, they settle, they shrink as they dry. In a log wall, that movement is expected, not surprising. Good builders plan for it. Doors and windows need room for that settling. Gaps are not always failures. Sometimes they are physics. That kind of craftsmanship takes patience. The walls rise slowly, and the underground shape becomes clearer with every course. The cabin's 2-room layout starts to show its real purpose. One room can be the quiet core of the home. The other can be a work zone, a storage zone, a transition space. Separate rooms make the shelter feel organized, even before it is finished. And in a hidden home like this, organization is survival. Because a sealed space needs more than wood and earth. It needs air. Underground shelters can't afford to ignore ventilation. Fresh air has to move through the cabin. even when the walls are tight and the outside world is sealed away by soil. Safety guidance for occupied shelters often uses a benchmark of about 15 cubic feet of fresh air per minute per person. That number matters more than it sounds. It is the difference between a room that feels closed and a room that can actually be lived in. Then there is the invisible threat beneath the floor: radon. It's the danger nobody sees, but underground builders have to respect it. The EPA warns that any home can have elevated radon, old or new, tight or drafty, basement or not. In a hidden cabin, that warning feels especially real. You can build a shelter that disappears into the earth and still have a hazard rising from the soil below. The EPA recommends fixing a home at or above 4 picocuries per liter. It also estimates radon causes about 21,000 lung cancer deaths in the U.S. every year. That turns a quiet underground dream into something more serious. It has to breathe, it has to be checked, it has to be safe. So the builder keeps going, balancing the beauty of the project with the realities of living inside it. More logs, more fitting, more shaping. The interior begins to take form as the rough shell becomes a usable space. Corners tighten, walls close in, openings are framed. The two-room layout now feels intentional, not improvised. You can start to imagine moving through it, boots by the entry, tools in one room, a bed in the other, warmth held by the earth around it. That's the quiet power of earth-sheltered design. It blends into the landscape, it stays low, it feels protected, and because the ground moderates temperature, the cabin should be more stable through changing weather than a lightweight above-ground build. But none of that matters if the site was chosen badly or the drainage is weak. That is the hidden truth of the whole project. Underground building can cost more upfront. The Department of Energy notes that earth-sheltered homes can run significantly higher in initial construction because you are paying for excavation, structure, waterproofing, insulation strategy, and drainage all at once. You do not just buy materials, you buy protection, and protection is expensive. Still, the work continues. The ceiling and upper structure are completed with the same methodical care. Each log reinforces the cabin's identity, turning the underground chamber into something unmistakably handmade. It is not sleek, it is not polished, it is sturdy, practical, and deeply human. That's what makes the build so compelling. A lone builder, working against mud, weight, moisture, and time, slowly turns a hole in the ground into a livable shelter. Not through speed, through repetition, not through force, through judgment. And by the time the final finishing details go in, the transformation is complete. The rooms are defined, the structure is enclosed, the space feels sheltered instead of buried. What began as raw excavation is now a hidden two-room log cabin, tucked into the earth and ready to serve as a real off-grid refuge. Quiet, efficient, nearly invisible from the surface. A home no one would expect to find there. That is the reward of the whole journey. Not just that it was built, but that it works. The land was not simply disturbed, it was transformed. If you build below grade, treat it like engineering, not carpentry. And that is what this cabin proves. With planning, endurance, and craftsmanship, even the ground itself can become shelter.